Welcome to the January 17th Design Review Commission meeting, our first meeting of the year. Mr. Secretary, do you want to do a roll call for us?
I can do that. Commissioner Killian? Here. Commissioner Valia? Here. Vice Chair Krelling? Here. Chair Newsom?
I'm here.
Commissioner Case is out of town and unavailable for tonight, and she will be absent, but we have a quorum.
Okay, so next item on the agenda, consent calendar. I understand there's nothing on the consent calendar, is that correct?
There is nothing for the consent calendar, correct?
Excellent, we'll move along. So now we're going to move on to public communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for comment items not on the agenda. Under the Brown Act, the Commission cannot act on items raised during public communications, but may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. Are there any public communications? Did anybody turn in a card? Okay, so let's move along then. Is there, are there any public communications outside of the Aquatic Center? Looks like no. Okay, great. Item 4, public hearing. I understand there's no public hearing tonight?
There are no public hearings tonight.
Okay. We're going to move over to commissioner considerations. I understand there's one, which is the new Aquatic and Community Center, right?
There's at least one. Staff will have a couple of announcements following.
Okay, good. So let's go ahead with that. Do we have a presentation?
Good evening, Chair Newsom and members of the Design Review Commission. My name is Janine Cavalli. I'm a senior planner here with the City of Walnut Creek. And I'm very excited to be presenting to you this evening on the new Aquatic and Community Center at Heather Farm Park that is being proposed. I am joined this evening by members of our consultant team from Nolan Tam Architects and RRM Design Group, and they will be coming up this evening as well to contribute to the presentation. So our team has been working on this project for several years. Last fall, we began the design portion of this project and are pleased to present to you the schematic design presentation package for the combined new facility at Heather Farm. This new facility will be an important asset to the community, and your feedback will be helpful in shaping the future design of the project. Though this project does not require design review approval, the project team values your feedback and your perspective and is seeking feedback from individual commissioners this evening on the 3 items listed here on the slide: the building architectural style and forms, the design of the immediately adjacent outdoor spaces, and the access to the facility and connections between the facility and the adjacent existing features in Heather Farm Park. So our agenda for this evening is first the presentation, again will be by myself and other members of our team. Then we'll take commissioners' questions, followed by public comment, and then commissioners' feedback and comments. So the outline of the presentation is that I'll start with an overview. I know this is the first time that Design Review Commissioners have seen this project, so I want to give a little bit of history of how we got to where we are today and some of the decision points that have been made by Council that helped to set the framework for the design schematic design presentation package before you this evening. I'll then hand it over to the consultant team who will go through the key features of the design. And then I'll close with next steps before we take your questions and comments. So again, at a high level, the purpose of the project is to replace aging aquatic center, the Clark Swim Center, and the existing community center buildings at Heather Farm Park with one new combined facility. To locate this new facility at the existing community center site within the park, and to replace 3 pools with a recreational pool and a 50-meter lap pool. So this slide goes over the project timeline. First, going a bit back in time with the Your Parks, Your Future project, which started with not only facilities at Heather Farm Park, but other parks as well. The community center at Civic Park, for example, and the Shadelands Arts Community Center. And so we began looking at all of those facilities which were identified by council as critical infrastructure that may be in need of replacement. And we looked at existing recreational and arts programming, and we did an analysis of the existing facility as well as what the new facility should accommodate in terms of programming. So over the next, and then we, that was from June 2018 to February 2020, and then from April 2021 to February 2023, we did the conceptual site plan. And I'll go through those key items that got us through to the conceptual site plan over the next series of slides. So we're currently in the design phase of the project, and we'll be presenting to you tonight some of the preliminary work within that design phase. And then will take us through to April of 2025. And then construction is anticipated to be at about 2 years from May 2025 to July 2027. So going back a little bit to how we got to where we are today, the team back in 2021 looked at 3 different locations for the future facility and where it could be located within the park. And we took and evaluated 3 sites, brought them to key stakeholders and the Pros Commission, and ultimately City Council provided direction in December 2021 to locate the new facility at the existing community center site. So this diagram here shows the kind of level of analysis at that time in terms of what the facility might look like. So we were kind of at a building blocks stage, if you will, and that really just was to demonstrate that a new facility could be accommodated at any one of those 3 locations. So here we're showing at that time what we had accommodated in terms of footprints for that location. And this slide also demonstrates some of the benefits of locating the facility at that location. Compared to the 3 locations, this site offered the most flexibility in terms of how the site could be, the building footprint and the outdoor spaces could be configured. It also allows for the existing Clark Community Center to remain open during construction so that aquatic programming could occur and take place over those 2 years. It also maintains the community center outlook over the pond, which was identified among many of the stakeholders as a very important and valuable asset of the community center that they wanted to keep. It also maintains some of the key pedestrian routes within the park. And lastly, it is centrally located, and there are 3 parking lots which were identified that could serve the new facility. So the project team then took those building blocks and started to refine them and use that as a starting point for the creation of the conceptual site plan, taking into consideration some of the feedback we received when we were looking at those 3 different locations. We made a number of adjustments to the configuration and orientation of the building footprint, as well as the layout of the 2 pools. We also added a significant level of detail and began to articulate the surrounding outdoor spaces to create a conceptual site plan for the new facility. So the conceptual site plan was reviewed by a number of key stakeholders, the Pros Commission and Council, and some of the future considerations that were identified are listed here on the slide. So in February, City Council accepted this conceptual site plan, but identified that there were a number of things that we should be looking at as we develop the plan further through the design phase. So things like some of the noise impacts, the pond refurbishment, pool deck capacity, and architectural styles and materials, to name a few. So that concludes the sort of very brief overview of what we've been doing for the last 3 to 4 years. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jocelyn of Nolan Tam Architects. Oh, yes. So also, one more thing. Housekeeping, we did receive a public comment this evening. You should have all received a copy of it from a representative of the Walnut Creek Aquatic Foundation.
Thanks, Janine. Jocelyn Lawrence Barish from Nolan Tam Architects. So as we started this project, we collected some of those directives that we received during feedback about the conceptual plan into these project assumptions you have before you. So the building was assumed to be 1 story, between 25 and 27,000 square feet, to include some outbuildings like the pool mechanical building. The existing interior community center and aquatics activities needed to be accommodated within this new joint facility so that the same programming can occur with a view towards flexibility to future additional programming that could be accommodated. The 2 pools that we're directed to include a 50-meter lap pool and a recreational pool. A portion of the pond was assumed to be infilled in order to increase the site footprint in this area, and that the All Abilities Playground remains in place. So it forms a little bit of a bounded area for where the site project limitations can occur. So the first step that we took was to talk to the community about what this center should look and feel like. And to do that, we tried to pull some precedents from around Walnut Creek and other projects from around the Bay Area to give folks a chance to look at some buildings and talk about what they like about them, what would be most appropriate for this facility in this park, in this city, and talk about some of the various amenities they might find at the recreational pool. Some of the larger moves we knew we were going to have to decide in this early portion of the design phase. So we had one large open house event at Heather Farm Community Center. We had an online survey that mimicked all those same questions. And here are the results that we gathered. I've had quite a few people respond to that online survey. And so we've got sort of the images ranked in order of what people responded to most frequently. And in addition, we had a lot of write-in comments, both at the open house and within the online survey themselves. And so we've created a weighted word cloud to highlight the kinds of words that people were using when they responded to these images. People really liked the design of the Walnut Creek Library and some of the other local buildings. There was a large concern about the look and feel of the architecture being of a piece with the kinds of architecture that we have in place in Walnut Creek already. Sort of in contrast to that, but it still makes sense to us that there needs to be a lightness and modernness to the architecture so that there's a lot of natural light. The materials are a bit more modern. We did have a lot of answers saying they like the more traditional actual forms of like a gabled roof and more natural kinds of materials. Those were the kinds of projects that got the most clicks. Same is true of, we asked specifically about the pool house. You know, did it need to be different than how the community center looked? And we actually had a lot of feedback that it should be really similar, the same kinds of natural materials with some modern detailing, but more traditional sort of building shapes. Similar things about, we asked specifically about building materials, just so that in case any of those previous photographs, people might have been drawn to something else. We wanted to make sure, was it the wood you liked? Was it stone and metal? And so, yes, natural materials were preferenced with quite a bit of wood and a mix of some metal and stone as well. For shade was a high priority at the exterior, and using similar kinds of materials at the sort of exterior event spaces that we already knew we would be putting in here. And similar kinds of answers about the actual materials for the event terraces and patios that are adjacent. That the recreational pool can accommodate various ages was the highest concern and comment, with beach entry being one of the most favored items. Similar spray water, current channel, these are all currently part of the design. And then we took all those comments and took some of the comments we received from pros and council, some of our own internal thinking about these spaces that we'd initially laid out, and made an amended site plan that we took to key stakeholder groups. We had 3 major groups we worked with. We did that this last fall, gave them this early draft of what we thought this community and aquatic center could look like, these are the folks we spoke to. We had folks from the Gardens at Heather Farm, the Audubon Society, Bird Alliance, folks who use that nature lake just to the north, the Fly Fishing Club, Chamber of Commerce, various caterers who could tell us about whether or not the rentable spaces were actually working well for the kinds of functions that they would hold there. And of course, the very important Walnut Creek Aquatic Foundation to talk about how the pools and the pool deck and the associated building spaces are working for them. Here's some of the feedback that we heard. There was a lot of excitement for the project and a lot of appreciation for where the floor plan was at so far. There was concern about the noise and noise activities in relation to the nature lake. And there was a sequence for how the loading might occur at the lakeside area that was asked for, as well as the Aquatic Foundation had a lot of concern about a number of people that it could be accommodated on the pool deck for large events, as well as the configuration and design of the pools. We will continue to have further meetings along those topics. So here are some guiding principles we used as we created this draft of the design you're going to look at. We're hoping that this building be a visual asset to the Heather Farm Park overall. It fit within its surroundings, being a building within a park. That it support all of those existing programs like we discussed, with that flexibility for future program expansion. That specifically those program spaces be more flexible. Currently, a lot of them are programmed to very specific activities. It's hard, for instance, to hold classes in the lakeside room, but a truly multi-purpose large event space could do both. Or within those smaller classrooms, have a lot of different kinds of classes that could be held within them. That the pool sizes, the pool support spaces be right-sized. Currently, the Clark Swim Center's spaces that serve it are sometimes poorly configured and often undersized. So those were corrections that we were making, and that the views across the pond be preserved from those major event spaces. Those were sort of bounding corners for how we wanted to configure the floor plan. I'm going to pass this on to Janet.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Janet Tam, principal at Nolan Tam Architects. We've made a lot of progress since we began the master planning project through concept design. And this is a very opportune moment to be here to present to you because we welcome your design input. We are about to end schematic design and on the threshold of design development. And so you can see here what we want to present tonight. First, our building floor plans, which I will go into some detail. Then our landscape architect will talk about the site features and site plans. And then another one of our team, Ned, will talk about the perspectives to give you a better idea at a sort of eye level. I wanted to introduce introduce the two schemes. I know from your package staff report that you realize that we have been entertaining two schemes. However, as we talk about them, I hold in your mind that they're very, very similar in floor plan and in siding. However, I start with these two bird's eye views because one of the main differences between the two schemes is the roof massing. So let me just orient you to this view. You can see Mount Diablo in the background. This is the west elevation of the building facing the pond. You can see the new pathway along the edge. Let me test out this along the edge of the pond, which is being reconstructed. This is the new lake side room on the on the north side of the building, and then on the south side is what we are calling the atrium, and you can see the pools and the pool house on the further south side. Now this is scheme A, and we call scheme A the gable design because you'll notice that there are two volumes that are gable shaped, and these represent, as I just mentioned, our entry atrium on the right and our lake side room on the right. Scheme B, which I'll flip to that one to be multitasking here. We are calling this the folding plane design scheme because the massing of the roof forms, as you see, are sloping and more varied. And the difference here is that this scheme has a more complex roofing system, and Ned is going to explain a little more about that when we get to the massing. And you'll notice that if I toggle back and forth, the lakeside room is very similar in both options, the volume. However, the volume on the right-hand side, where the atrium is tucked under here, is more of a roof that extends into a single roof. So more to follow on that. So those are, I'll toggle one more time because it's kind of fun to look at both together. And then you'll see again A and B. Now I'd like to focus on the floor plans, but I should also, let me focus on the floor plans. What I'd like to do, this is floor plan A, and we did this because this is how our cost estimates are going to be determined. But scheme B is, I'm going to start with scheme B because it's a little simpler to explain scheme B, and it's sort of how we evolved the project. We went from the concept plan, which you saw in your package and in the slideshow, and we went to a rectilinear scheme first, but both options have the same program. They both have the same adjacencies. This building footprint is 23,400 square feet. The scheme B is really only 100 square feet larger. But let me just focus on the sort of pieces of this option of both plans. So you can see in blue is the aquatic wing, and on the red is the community center wing, and the lake side room that have all the tables, and that is the same size as the existing lake side room that you have now. And the space program was determined during the concept plan, and the intent was really to accommodate all of the existing activity programs and to right size, as Jocelyn said, many of the aquatic spaces. We did in the new program accommodate one additional multi-purpose room and what we are identifying as this lobby space, which is our atrium. That is, those are new components to the space program that the existing facilities do not have. So let me just walk you through, if you're a visitor here. It is a combined facility, so that there's synergy with both functions, yet at the same time, there are separate entries. So if you are someone who knows you're going to go swimming or you have a swim lesson, you come into a dedicated entry, and then you can check in at this reception desk and then walk onto the pool deck. If you are coming for a program or an activity in one of the multi-purpose rooms, you would come through the main front door and into the atrium, which is a large, really what we consider the community living room for the community center. And it really is sort of the shared space between both components of the aquatic community center. And if you are coming to a very large event, an amazing wedding that's going to take place in the lakeside room, and you know you're going there, you actually don't have to come through the front door. You could, if you don't absolutely, but you also, there could be a special sign so that you can actually, I'm sorry, can you see my cursor? You can come through this secondary entry to go directly into a wedding. So if you have a simultaneous event, and the event it can accommodate it, and that's for staff to determine, then the separate entries really allow both functions to happen at the same time. So in addition to scheduling accommodations to make sure that if there really is a huge aquatics event, then maybe you wouldn't rent the lakeside room. But in a case where both could simultaneously work together, there are separate entries. Let me just speak a little bit more about this atrium space because we think it's quite an important space. There is a reception desk that's sort of the knuckle and the wayfinding for people who are coming in, whether either you can be directed to another window for the swim aquatics area, or you could be directed to a multi-purpose room. There are also kitchens and storage that serve the lake side room and the other two multi-purpose rooms. So what we did, this is scheme B, but as we were developing it, we thought, you know what, let me go this way. What would be really nice is if we could make the spaces that are these circulation spaces, or the atrium, or the breakout space for the multi-purpose rooms, to be a little more interesting and functional. These are not wasted spaces. They are intended to be informal gathering, or even you could rent them out for other events that would accommodate informal programs or special events. This, I forgot to mention, this is in both cases the aquatic classroom, which has walls, a wall that opens onto the atrium space. All of these program spaces also have outdoor connections with walls that open out, so there's an extension from the inside to the outside. And with this tweaking of the plan, we're able to make the outdoor space a little more generous outside of the lake view room. We're able to make this wall that views out onto the pond of the atrium a little more wide, so you have this more spectacular view. And what I thought was really important is to have a connection that's a little more gracious between the two wings of the building. So that is both, and let me just end by saying that we think that both of these options are really wonderful. We think that there's been a lot of input from many users and city staff, so that this has really been a very strong collaborative effort. And our intent, which if I pause on this image for a moment, was really to make sure that this is an iconic building, that it really responds to the community desire to make it a traditional building with traditional forms like gable shapes, yet at the same time very modern and contemporary. And it wants to be warm and inviting, and those are all of our sort of touchstones as we have designed the project, and want to keep track of that. So I'm going to continue on to Gina.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Gina Chavez. I'm a landscape architect on the project with RRM Design Group. And I'm going to go over the site plan a bit. But just to first start out with some of the guiding principles, the idea is to expand on the current program spaces at the park and to maintain the existing pedestrian walkways, create the new community living room space that Janet was talking about, improve the pond layout and function, and also provide an acoustic barrier between the pools and the rest of the park. And also just to consider all the users at the park, passive, informal, and programmed. I was out at the park this afternoon, and it was a beautiful sunny day. There was just so many different users out there. It was really remarkable. I started talking to this one woman. She had moved from San Francisco to Walnut Creek 26 years ago, and she said when she was trying to make the decision, she came to Heather Farm Park, and she showed me the place where she sat and was watching the birds, and she said that actually really played a big role in her decision to move there. And she's still walking her dog out there and watching the birds to this day. So I found that to be inspiring. So as Jocelyn mentioned, we are bound by several existing features and amenities at the park. I'm going to use the mouse to sort of point these out. But on the east edge, we are maintaining the alignment of North San Carlos Drive and the existing bikeway, as well as all of the existing intersections that the community center is adjacent to. And then a big thing, of course, are the views, as Jana and Jocelyn both mentioned. The views from the facility across the pond to the gardens and the other park amenities, and also the views onto the site from those amenities. I walked across to the gardens and just walked up there, and it's such a spectacular view across that pond to the existing community center. And I just imagined how much better it's going to be with this new building. So that's really exciting. As Jocelyn and Janet also mentioned, we are slightly reconfiguring the pond. So we are eliminating this northeastern lobe, which tends to be a bit stagnant anyway, and we are gaining that space for the building and the outdoor spaces. And in addition, we are connecting the pathway that goes all the way around the pond. So this whole eastern edge is not there today, but that'll create a continuous loop around the pond for the many users who are out there. And then on the south edge, of course, the beloved playground, we're not touching that, but we're just creating better connections to it, creating some new paths that are on this north edge of the playground, and then making a direct connection straight to the pond and to the pool amenities, as well as to the community center. And then also on the north edge, we are respecting the creek corridor and the oak woodland out there. So we talked to the Audubon Society and the Bird Alliance, and it's super important to create a barrier between the activities that are happening at the community center and the natural lake out there. So we talked to them about some methods that we could integrate into the site plan to create that buffer, that acoustic buffer. And then another buffer that we are considering is this green berm right down here. So this creates a separation between the pool areas as well as the rest of the park uses. And then the building also creates a bit of a barrier between that natural lake and the pools. So this is just a real quick context. I'm going to get into the details of the community center, the event patios and the courtyards and the drop-off, but just to give you a quick idea of the site. So Janet already reviewed the building here, but we have a new drop-off area, which I'll talk about in a minute when we go into circulation. And then we also have an enclosed courtyard at the front of the building. That's one entrance, and I'll go into that a little bit more. But we also have the primary entrance here, where you can access that atrium. And then we have entrance into the aquatic center as well, and I'll get into that detail. But then on the west side of the building, we have a couple of different event patios, one outside of the lakeside room and one outside of the multi-purpose room. And the idea here is really to have that indoor-outdoor connection, that seamless space where you could flow in and out. And then we also have some spaces adjacent to this new pathway that would be accessible to the public. So some sloped lawn areas where people can just hang out informally and watch the park activities and the birds. And then we also have some things to work into the design, like bioretention features to treat the stormwater. So that's all integrated into this space. So this is scheme A. So this is where the building is slightly angled. Oops. Wrong control. So scheme B, the site plan, is very similar. So it respects all of the same park relationships that I just talked about in scheme A. The only difference is the building is more rectilinear. So there's a little bit less space in the event area on the west side of the building in this scheme, and a little bit more space in the private courtyard on the east side of the building. So that's the only difference between the site plans. So taking a look at circulation, we have this designated pickup drop-off area right here. So as you're coming north on San Carlos Drive, you would come up and you would either turn left. We're actually studying this whole circulation and drop-off area with the city and consultant traffic engineers right now. So we're determining what this configuration is going to be in terms of direction of traffic and parking and all of that. But in general, this is intended to be a designated drop-off area. And we also added an entrance. It's just north of the plan right here. But that allows you to come past this main entrance in case it ends up being a one-way. And then you go north on San Carlos Drive, you turn left into the parking lot, and you either go park in the north parking lot where the solar structures are, or you may find some parking down here, or you may just pull all the way through to drop off community center or aquatic center visitors here, and then you pull back out. So, and I'll give you a little bit more detail on that when we look at the blow-up site plan. In terms of connections, we have several connections to the facility. There are 3 from the existing parking lots. So you have the north parking lot up here, and then you have the east sports field parking lots down here. And then just off the page, just south of the playground, you have the Clark Swim Center parking as well. So we are creating paths from each of these parking areas and safe crossings to get to the east side of the building, as well as the west side of the building and the aquatic center. There are several entry points into the aquatic center, including entrance for service vehicles like the mechanical equipment and pump trucks. And once again, this still preserves the existing bike path that goes along North San Carlos Drive. So taking a closer look at the site plan, I'm going to just explain Scheme A in detail, and then I'll just point out the minor differences in Scheme B. So starting at the entrance, as I said, if you drive north on San Carlos Drive, you can choose to park over here or park in the sports field parking. Either way, you can come in as a pedestrian from this direction, and we have a nice generous pathway here, 10 feet wide, so that you can accommodate multiple forms of circulation. Or you may come from the north parking lot over the existing bridge and come down this, once again, generous pathway, and you swoop around this enclosed courtyard, which then opens up into this large pedestrian-oriented entry courtyard. So if you're coming to an event and maybe there's like a special, like Jana was talking about, maybe a sandwich board that says like Smith Wedding this way, then you would turn into this courtyard, come through a gate, and this could be a space where your guests are waiting, having cocktail hour, maybe having some photo ops. We might have a decorative wall in here with plantings on it, but this is really intended to be for events, but also everyday staff lunches or hangout space. So it's dual functional, but then you have access from this courtyard to the lakeside room on the north edge, on the north side of this building. So if you're not coming to a special event or coming to the staff patio, you might come to this main entryway here, which looks directly into the atrium, which is the community living room, but also it has a view straight out to the pond. So the intention is you come here and you can see through to the pond, and people want to walk through this space, whether it's to get to the other side or to attend some function in the building. And then we have a third possible entrance for things like when you have a swim center event, you might have this sliding gate that's open and you have a table set up so that people can check in and they don't have to come through the building. They can just go straight into the aquatic center. So whichever way you're going to get into the swim center or to the lakeside room or the multi-purpose room, you come through to the other side of the park where you have the pond. And this is the west side, the sunny side. And we have two different event patios. So we have this one up here, which is adjacent to the lakeside room. And then we have another one here, which is adjacent to the multi-purpose room. And the intention here is that these could really be used as one large space rented out, or they could be separated into two different spaces. Maybe someone just has a smaller event that they want to just have half the size. So the intent is for this to be flexible. And then adjacent to these patios, we have lots of green space. So on the north patio, the lakeside patio, we have this lawn area adjacent. And the intent here is to really be able to flow back and forth. So maybe if you're having a wedding, you have tables on the patio, but you also have tables flowing out to the lawn. Or you have your ceremony up here on this northern lobe with the lake behind you and the oak woodland, and you set up your chairs here, and then you have your party on the patio and in the adjacent lawn. And then the multi-purpose patio is intended to be flexible, but we're kind of seeing this as maybe it has a standing bar and it has furnishings where people can hang out in a separate event or a combined event. And then in addition to these private areas, which we are seeing as being fenced in, we have these more public spaces. We have this pond platform that you can sit in here. It has built-in seating, views out to the lake, and we have these adjacent lawn areas, and maybe they slope up and people can hang out there. And then we have the bioretention that I mentioned earlier, which is really designed to be integrated into the landscape as a feature rather than just an engineered element. And then this is the berm that I was talking about that creates some separation between the pool and the pond. And the pool area is going to be tiered because of the way the grades are out there. So this rec pool area is lower than the 50-meter pool area. So then scheme B is very similar. It's just the shape of the lakeside patio is a little bit different, a little bit smaller, and then the private enclosed courtyard in the front of the building is a little bit bigger. So now I'm going to pass it over to Ned, who is going to talk about the three-dimensional elements of the spaces.
Thank you, Gina. My name is Ned Reifenstein. Let me adjust this. Ned Reifenstein with Nolan Tam, and I'm going to talk some more about the renderings, the 3D views that we did. Janet talked about this one a little bit. I'll talk some more. This is the aerial view of Scheme A, where you can really see our intention of setting the two gabled forms off against a sort of set of flatter roofs, giving them a little bit more prominence and really marking them as the special spaces in the building. Each one of those volumes goes all the way through. It's glass on both ends. At least with the lakeside room, you have the option of keeping the partition open so you get that full space. It can also be divided. Also, you can see very clearly here how the lakeside room is canted a little bit more to the north. In addition to being sort of fronting more on that event space on the lower left corner, it also is going to help a little bit with the western exposure and the heat gain issues, which we've been thinking a lot about. So Scheme B, the folded plane scheme, is really thought of as a landscape of roofs, which is not really an abstract idea because this building will be seen from a distance across the park, from the garden across the way. You'll be seeing it against the backdrop, which is the mountains. And we really took our cues from the undulating ridge line of Mount Diablo and its neighbors and thought that we could create a kind of similar kind of cascading effect with the roof lines of this building. Oops. So going to the entry sequence, this is the drop-off space that Gina was showing in her slides. We're coming from the sports field parking lot across North San Carlos, and this might actually be just after being dropped off right there. The front and center there is the main atrium space, which is the largest feature and really meant to be a welcoming, iconic moment to tell you where to go and where to, please come in. If you are a swimmer and you don't really need to go into the community center, the aquatics programs are off on the left. You can see there's a separate entry there. Also, the beginnings of a trellis system that will wrap around that whole wing to provide shade and some continuity for those forms. On the right, you can see the lakeside room, which also is prominent, though not as a front door kind of experience as the atrium has. If you are coming for a function at the lakeside room, you do have the option of peeling off on the right, like Gina was discussing, if you wanted to separate the access from an aquatic event and a wedding or a special event in the lakeside room. So going to option B, this one, the atrium space appears more vertical. It's actually the same height, but it's a little bit narrower in terms of the expression, and the roof comes out further to provide more of a sort of a front porch effect for the building. The same program disposition is here, the aquatics to the left and the lakeside room to the right, with the trellises tying them together. So going into the atrium space, we're now about at the middle of the atrium, looking back out to the drop-off where we just were. You can see the reception desk on the left, where you can sign into programs and get oriented to events and programs. In the back is or sort of in the distance by the entry is the aquatics entry. They also have a smaller desk. Most of their people will be coming from outside, but we also gave an option for people who come through from the lakeside to be able to have a place where they touch down and are directed into the aquatics program. On the right is the aquatics classroom, which opens out onto the pool deck, but it also has frontage on the atrium space, so it's really meant to be potentially an amenity for both the community center and the pool program. Our goals for this space were to really provide as much daylight as we could without it being, blasting light. So we have clear stories with large overhangs to shield the direct sun, but to have glazing at both ends and to really bring in as much daylight as we can. This is a view from the pool deck. You can see the recreation pool on the right. Straight ahead is that aquatics classroom. It's set back a little bit with a courtyard, a shaded courtyard that would be part of the amenity. You could have the party inside and also outside. The left wing, what you're seeing right there is one of the swim team offices, but behind that would be the locker rooms, or the changing rooms, I should say. On the right side are the staff offices for the aquatics program and the lifeguard room right there on the deck with a really good viewing of everything going on in the swimming areas. This is a view of the lakeside room in the evening set up for an evening event. We're looking west towards the pond. The operable wall is open, so we're showing how what's happening inside is spilling out, creating a real kind of connection between inside and outside. Here we wanted as much wood as we could to really give it warmth. Again, there's clear story lighting on both the north and the south side, so the volume is really filled with light. And when the partition is open, this would be a similar view on the other side. So this kind of feeling would go all the way through the room. And lastly is the view of the center from the event garden, we've been calling it, the place where we might potentially have a wedding. Looking back to the event patio set up for a reception, you can see the lakeside room with the partition open. The lights are on and people are enjoying the new community center. I think, one more thing here. We have some small massing models that, yeah. One of them is down a bathroom. So, anyway, I can pass these around. So. Okay.
I can get back. Okay. It goes back on easily. There.
Somebody have the clicker? So that concludes the presentation of the schematic design package. Before we take your questions, I just want to highlight for you the next steps. We're going to be presenting to other commissions, the Youth Commission, and then a second meeting with pros where we focus on just the design of the two pools, and then a meeting with the Arts Commission relating to public art. And then we'll synthesize all of the feedback received and go to City Council for 2 meetings. And then that will conclude the schematic design phase of the project, and then we'll begin design development where we present and prepare the fully developed building plan, landscape plan, materials and color palette. And again, we'll take those through to stakeholders, commissions, and council. So we will be back somewhere around the springtime to present those materials and color palette and landscape plan. So with that, we're available for your questions.
I'm sure we got some questions. Let's begin all the way at the end. How about that?
I just had two general questions. One was the in front of the community center, the drop-off area. Are you restricted there? To me, it seems like it's a wasted opportunity there, and I didn't know if that was beyond your scope or not. It seemed like that was a very large area that could present another opportunity, and the way you have that large drop-off and the existing redwoods, I was wondering, if that was part of the project or not.
So you're talking the circle area shown here is currently under study, but that is actually a very busy area currently, and so we needed to accommodate a fairly sufficient amount of queuing there. But that area is under study, so we haven't fully worked out the details of, is it one way, is it two way?
Well, I'm not talking
And there
about
are
that
existing
circulation. I'm
redwoods.
talking about that whole area to where it could be developed all the way out to the bike path. I don't know why you need such a large circular area, whether you could have more parking there, a larger outdoor space. So my question is, is that within bounds of the project?
Yes, it is. And there are two kind of studies. My understanding is one is attempting to preserve those redwoods, and another would maybe looking at ways to provide some like ADA parking that's closer to the entrance. Yeah.
So by the next time we talk to you, we actually should have our final design for that area. It'll be a bit of a trade-off. If we remove the redwoods, the grade between North San Carlos Drive and the actual entry of the community center means that if we put anything there, it will have to navigate that grade. So there'll be a bit of a cost-benefit analysis to how that works. I do see what you're saying as far as opportunity for more circulation, more parking. It might be quite expensive. So we're currently studying that and how it would affect the rest of the project.
Okay. Next question, scheme A, I think is the tilted one or the, I mean, you're calling this the lakeside room and everything, but yet that scheme, you go away from the pond. You're kind of looking away from it and you're not really focusing on it. So I kind of like that scheme better, but again, if the whole idea is to take advantage of the pond, it seems like you're kind of shifting away from it.
Yeah, that one orients a little bit more towards the outdoor adjacent space that would be used, say, for like a wedding event. You would kind of flow in and out of that lakeside room into the event garden. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, so in this scheme, like Janine said, if you're in the event garden, you're looking straight back, sort of, what would that be, southwest toward the pond. But from the lakeside room, you're looking directly across. But you also have a view of the natural lake through there as well. So in this scheme, maybe you have a little bit better angle on the natural lake view. But either way, from the event garden, however the building is canted, you're going to see the pond and the natural lake.
Okay, my last question is, we received the letter from the Aquatic Center. What exactly is their concerns that you haven't addressed, or is it the three-pool issue, or what?
Yeah, so back in 2016, City Council made direction to staff to further study just the two, or move forward with just a two-pool option. So that's the direction we got back in, I believe it was 2016. So we've been moving forward with that direction. Nothing has changed from council's perspective, but we are still working through some of the details with the Aquatic Foundation in terms of the pool design and the pool deck and capacity. We've made a number of adjustments based on some of those past meetings, but we're not asking the Design Review Commission to weigh in on the pool design, more so the sort of how the configuration of the pools work with the layout in the new facility.
I was just kind of curious. I mean, they don't identify what their concern is, but it was enough saying they really didn't want us making recommendations. So I was kind of curious, what is their concern that hasn't been addressed?
The concern is they want larger, a more amount of water, deeper water, and what we've attempted to accommodate is some of that more water, but they would like more, but this is a constrained site.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
So, a very simple question. So you're saying this is schematic design? What schematic design? I mean, I'm an architect, so I know what it is, but what schematic design for you guys? I mean, because I guess what follows is that you're going to start developing this, but I see that there are so many incongruencies here between form and the function and the massing, and I don't know, it needs a lot of geometry work. I mean, it's still very, I mean, look at the roofs. Look at the roofs. It's far from a workable schematic design to put it into design development phase. I mean, that's my take. I'm being honest, and I think that's what you expect from us. So I see that the building as well it's really well connected. I see that east-west axis. I really like that between entry and lake, both sides. But there's no such intent with connecting the building with the pool. I mean, I don't see that north-south axis reflected anywhere, and I think it deserves it. I mean, it's a building that addresses the pool. It's a building that addresses the weddings as well and many other functions. But my major concern here is that geometry-wise, it looks more like an org chart with a roof to me than actually a schematic design.
So I'm not sure if you could repeat if there was a specific question.
Question is, so when you go to design development, are you taking this as the basis of your design development?
Yes.
Or are you still going to refine the geometry, the massing, the scale,
And then maybe you could help me too. Thank you for your comments.
Sure.
You know, schematic design and design development, there are sort of blurring of the edges. We are definitely developing the design into design development. There are a lot of things that are still being resolved, like just, you know, plan B or plan A, you know, that in itself is an important decision for us to move forward to. However, there are a lot of things that have been in our minds and with our stakeholders and with the city staff set, and that is the space program, the floor plan adjacencies, and we are trying to resolve the roof massing and geometry with the building. I think the siding is actually getting pretty well set because of the configuration and the limitations of the ability of the site itself. The test fit, we are constrained by where the all abilities playground is. That is one boundary. The pond itself, we've actually been able to by reducing the size of the pond. There's been a little bit more area for the building, but the pools also have very specific requirements in terms of orientation and spacing and clearances. So I don't think our idea is for sure to make the building respect and work with the pools. Right now, it's more focused, from what I'm hearing you say, it's more focused on the recreational pool as a feature, because a lot of the program and the security issues for the pool function require that pool be a little bit closer to the supervision. So a lot of these requirements are also playing into the design. I hope that helps. That's where we are. But absolutely, we are developing this, and we'll come back to you. But I appreciate your comments.
I'm happy to hear that, because I think there's a lot of room here for improvement in terms of the geometry
Always
and
looking-
massing, the
yes,
scale,
we are not done.
relationship of the volumes. It's a little bit chaotic, to my perception.
Okay, we'll work on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a process question first for the secretary, because this is an informal, it's not a hearing, it's just a consideration item. Is this just sort of our one pass of questions and comments and we're kind of done?
Well, I believe you just heard this is going to come back at a further developed stage.
I mean, just for tonight?
Yes.
Just going to kind of do one pass of back and forth with each commissioner, and that's
Correct.
kind of
This
it.
is
Okay.
really an informational
Yep.
presentation with the ability for the design review commissioners individually to make comments and ask questions.
Great, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So, full disclosure, since I've been listening to a lot of design professionals, I am the sole non-design review professional. I am a resident at large seat, so my eyes on all design things that we look at on the commission are through the eyes of the everyday Walnut Creek citizen. What do I want to look at? What do I want to go to? Where would I like to be, et cetera? So I'm not going to use fancy design terms or anything. So I just want to put that out there so you didn't think I was like, oh, who is this dude here? And I'm just going to kind of go in order of kind of notes that I took. So I know there's no official request for any feedback on the 2-pool size of the pool. So just as a commissioner, I would be remiss if I didn't just recommend, to the extent the city, the project team can work with the Walnut Creek Aquatics Foundation, of which I am not a member of, or I'm not a pool user here. So I don't really have any bias on this, just to partner as much as you can to make everybody as happy as possible as you can do in a project like this. One question I had, so on the pond, will there be any restrictions to walking or biking around the pond based upon this holistic design?
No, the intent of the new design is that there is an ADA accessible walkway around the entire perimeter.
Great. In some of the renderings, I could, and this just may be because of how you rendered it, I can see with scheme A versus B, I can see like different interior truss timber structures. Is that on purpose going with those designs, or is that's just flexible and it's just how you drew it up?
Yes. So those trusses are mix and match in the sense that we had some different designs we were looking at, and we thought, well, let's put one with A and one with B, but we can, we'll do 5 designs before we really settle on one, and so it's under development.
Okay, great. Thank you.
If you have comments about them, we'd love to hear it. So, you like one?
Well, I'll answer that sort of holistic question with overall, I prefer the version A, the gable, the basically the building built with an angle in it. Overall, I think that's preferable for my tastes. I also didn't realize until I saw the little 3D guys, I thought the big flat section between the 2 gables was fully flat, and I was going to ask if you could do something to break that up. But I see on one end you have that roof line inclining on the 3D model. So was that intentional on the model?
That's over the second multi-purpose room, so that it also has a little bit more height and some special character as well. So.
I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but it was great, all the public feedback that was shared and summarized in the package. I thought that was great to be able to see. I would imagine, sounds like you got a lot of favor for a gable design, and then so when you look at the folded plain design, my guess is that's probably not what the average person thought of when they said, hey, I like gables.
Well, when you do, I guess I would respond by looking at these 2 perspectives. The 2 prominent forms in the building are still gables, regardless of if these sort of in between are sloped or flat.
Yeah. So from purely a layman's perspective, just Charles, looking at the buildings, I think the atrium gable gets a little lost or diminished in the folded plane design. So again, I'm just sharing a personal preference because that's what you asked for. You know, neither design is right or wrong. I took a quote from you guys, which I love. I'll use in my business life, the weighted word cloud. No, I thought that, I love it. I noticed on page 16, it was kind of interesting, the materials, the scores you got between the different materials were almost all the same. So there's just there wasn't seemingly any great preference for one or the other.
Yeah, some of the questions did have very minor differentiation in the preferences.
Yeah. Okay, so getting to the roof, any thinking of roof materials at this point yet?
Yeah, the steeper slopes, the ones over the two gabled forms in Scheme A and the steeper slopes in Scheme B would be an asphalt shingle. And then the low slope, the flat roofs would be, which you wouldn't really see because it'd be behind a parapet, would be, you know, a membrane of some sort, TPO, or it would be a white roof with a very thin slope. And yes, well, something that doesn't show on the renderings is that there would be a significant amount of solar panels, probably on the aquatics wing with the south facing.
Thank you for that. I would, to the extent you could get away from any kind of asphalt shingles or classic gravel flat roofs, I would encourage that. I saw some of these renderings or somewhere in there, you know, the metal roof with the little seams. I think that will be much more attractive on this building than perhaps any kind of asphalt shingle. Again, personal, just Charles's views. Oh, another question. So, and this is a good rendering up here. So, on this design, on the right-hand side, so between the, I guess, the lakeside room and the atrium, if I'm getting the pieces right, and you've got the declining plane, is that going to be a cathedral ceiling from the inside, or will that still be a flat ceiling, just like as I would expect with the other design?
We're going to expose that as much as we can. If we're going through the effort of making that kind of a roof form, we want to see it from the inside as well. We have been looking at cross-laminated timber, which is a new building technique that uses wood panels as a structural system, and it actually has the added benefit of being a finished shape on the finished material on the inside. So we haven't decided on that yet. It depends on how the budget works out. But that's been in our thinking.
Great. You'll find the things I like probably end up costing more money.
And just to clarify, one of the things that we'll be bringing back at the next meeting to you is a materials and colors palette.
Great. And then with the design I like, it's got that flat area. I don't know if there's anything architecturally that could be changed there that could give it a little bit more uplift and kind of open up the space so you don't have a flat ceiling. So it doesn't look like this. That's my general preference for buildings in general, is that openness. It would go a long way to complement all that beautiful, I love all the windows of light you're bringing in everywhere. Okay, getting to the end here, the aquatics classroom, it looks like it has glass and then it can open up to the atrium. When you shared that, I had a little bit of mixed feelings because I was thinking about, I think somebody used the term for the atrium of like the public living room or gathering space. And then I might want more separation from a classroom venue and all the people in a classroom. I mean, glass is typically great, but then if it's in this rendering here, I'm looking at these people enjoying those chairs and having their coffee or whatever, and then you've got the classroom there. Might be a little distracting. Okay. this is really talking about all the different patios outside surrounding the building. So I looked up quickly, and I may have an old number, but we're looking at a $76.5 million project. So, well, let's just say north of $70 million of taxpayer money, because this is Measure O sales tax money. Are these patios, especially the ones facing the pond, are they really private for mostly the use of people who are renting the spaces? Or can I, as Charles and my wife, walk along the pond, go up and, you know, spend some time on those nice patios?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I think in the presentation maybe it came across that way. And they have the ability to be private for events. They can be rented out, but when there is not a special event, they are open to the public.
Great. Awesome answer. Thank you. Oh, okay. And then my last comment, if you can bring up the drop-off area slide.
These are questions. Comments come later.
No, we're not doing a formal hearing. That's why I asked the secretary. We're just going one by one. I mean,
Aren't
Yeah,
we
the
doing
intent
public
was-
comment after this and then
Yes,
giving our
the
comments?
the intent was to do questions first, then public comment, and then come back and do comment.
okay. I'll turn the comment into a question. So that's why I asked the secretary. I
Okay.
thought it was not that formal, but no problem. Sorry for mixing and matching. So at the top there, when you're coming down into the drop-off area, you've got those 90-degree parking spaces. I don't know how much thought has gone into that. So I guess the question is, how much have you considered the absolute frustration that might be caused to the people trying to get down to the drop-off area by 90-degree? And I can tell you, when they redesigned the Encina Grande Shopping Center near where I live, that used to be mostly like diagonal parking, they turned it into 90-degree parking, and it's a nightmare.
So we're currently studying that area with the city and consultant traffic engineers, but it's a very good point. Thank you for pointing it out. We are planning on having sufficiently wide drive aisles to accommodate back out, and we are looking at one study that has diagonal parking.
Okay.
So we'll stay tuned on that.
Is there any possibility of no parking there? It doesn't look like a lot of spots.
Yeah, we definitely need to have the ADA spaces, so we're working on that. But in general, the direction has been to not eliminate parking.
Right.
Like,
I'm thinking about the 200-person beautiful wedding that you had in the other rendering, and thinking
Where's
about
everyone
all those
parked?
people, not the parking, the circulation of the drop-off area is, so, anyway, that's what I was asking about. Anyway, those are all my thoughts at the moment. Thank you very much for indulging me.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to just ask questions and then let the public speak, and then I'll come back with comments, because that's, I think, what you wanted. So can we talk, just refresher about the program of this? So I know let's talk about like day-to-day. So how many pool events are there per year, like big pool events?
So in terms of like large meets,
Yeah.
there's 2 a year.
There's 2 a year, so not that many, right? And then, but very popular swim center, right?
Very popular.
Lot-
In
lot-
fact, Jim, can you come? It opens very early in the morning and around, I think it's 5 o'clock until 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. And Jim's going to tell you more about it.
Okay.
Hi, Jim Carlson, Recreation Program Manager at Heather Farm Park. Mostly what I do is at the Heather Farm Community Center, but I'm very aware of the Clark Swim Center as well. They open at 5 a.m. Every day of the week, and they close about 8 p.m. most days of the week.
And many people?
Yeah, they have there's the 3 primary swim clubs that use it, and in addition to that, they have a very robust recreation swim program, and they have a lot of the recreation swim program is primarily in the summer months, but during the year it's lap swim 7 days a week. It's what they're primarily doing.
Yeah, so, I don't know, 30 people in there at a time, more? Just trying to figure
I
out
think
what
when
the
it would,
people is.
when it's busy, 30 people during the lap swim time, yeah, about 30 people would be about per hour, though. I mean, on the hour, all when they're having those hours that are open.
Is it
when
different on the weekend than the weekday?
I can't really speak to the weekend lap swim, but I think it's more there's specific people that like to come pretty much all the time. So they might be coming there 5 or 6 days a week, some of the people that
Yeah.
swim laps.
Yeah. And then, do you physically live in the park, huh?
My office is in the park, yes, at the Heather Farm Community Center.
So you'll live here? Yeah. And how many folks are in your office?
We have 8 full-time staff that are there on and off, but we are there year-round in that capacity.
In the park, like in both facilities, or just in the pool?
In the community center. The pool has 3 full-time staff, plus a maintenance person who's runs between both pools, and the community center has 6 full-time staff and some hourly staff that work there many hours a day.
And what are they doing? Are they teaching? What?
Administration for recreation would be everything from taking in registrations, taking phone calls. We have a facility rental operation that works out of there. We have the sports field rentals that work out of there, the gymnasium facilities that get rented out of there, and some of the maintenance of not the public works maintenance, but the recreation side. There's a maintenance guy.
So, like, you're actually renting out facilities outside of this facility?
That's correct. We're a hub. We're like a hub for
Okay.
the city.
Okay.
Tice Gym, the middle school
All that,
gyms,
yeah.
the sport fields, up at Red Gear, Tice Valley Park, all the parks that.
And so are people coming in a lot of the time these days? Are they still coming in to rent things? Or are they doing it mostly online?
Absolutely. People want to see what they're going to rent a lot of times. We do a lot of tours where we'll actually go out and show the facility, or they might be contract issues they want to talk about that they can't resolve online or over the phone. So they'll come in sometimes to talk about it. But the majority of the work is done online, over the phone, in conversations. But when we get near the summertime, a lot of one of the landscape architect mentioned, there's just a lot of people in that park on a daily basis. I think it was documented about 1.5 million visitors per year coming through that park.
Yeah, a lot. I'm one of them.
It's a very busy park.
I mean, I think, what other questions? So, like, how about, like, in the community center, right? So you have a lot of administration uses, right? But then classes, I mean, are there classes in the community center?
That's correct, yes. There are classes that are held in the Lakeside Room and in the multipurpose room, which is right now called the Club Room. In addition, in the summer, there are camps held right on site that are very popular. The camps in the Heather Farm Community Center had about 1,100 people in it over the course of the summer last year.
Yeah. My kids have been in them. Thank you. I mean, that gives me a basis to make some comments later. Thanks. What else was I going to ask? Just a question for the landscape architect. So could you bring up like the site plan? I'm just looking at this. I mean, first off, I think I'll make one comment, which is I really like the direction of both. The one thing that's kind of puzzling to me is that what is the genesis of that area that is down by the lake that's flow and accessible to the lake? I mean, that where the stairway comes down to stairway walkway, was that flat area at the bottom? Was that something that people actually asked for?
So are you talking about just adjacent to the
the
path?
adjacent,
Oops.
yeah.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that is helpful. Thank you, Janine. So this is really actually sloped because the building pad is about 4 feet higher than the path around the pond.
Yeah.
So this is more like a gentle ramp going up. And then the lawn areas here are sloped and intended to be used.
So it's just a little bit of relief. I mean, it's not flat, really. It's
No,
just another way to traverse the grade.
correct, yeah.
All right. I think that's it in the way of questions. So now we're going to go to public comment, right? Do we have any members of the public who want to talk? So when you come on up, introduce yourself, and if you represent somebody, please say who that is. And you'll have how much time to talk? You have 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes, okay?
I
Thanks.
won't need all of 2 minutes to say what I'm going to say. I'm Leslie Hunt. I am from the Walnut Creek Open Space Foundation, which is allied with the Walnut Creek Watershed Council. We know the Audubon people. We belong to the environmental community, in short. Ever since the open space bond issue, am I really talking into this microphone? Are we okay? Okay, I never know. Anyway, ever since the open space bond issue 50 years ago, Walnut Creek's environmentalists have had their eyes on Seven Hills Ranch. I'm sure you didn't expect to hear about that tonight, but anyway, it adjoins Heather Farm on the west. It is 30 acres, and it plays an important supporting role in the wildlife that is in the park. Because it is on a wildlife corridor that comes down from the mountain through Shell Ridge, and across the civilized area, and across Seven Hills, and on up the creek to Suisun Bay. Lots of things use it. And that is one of the reasons why Heather Farm's wildlife is as rich as it is. But the proposed Seven Hills Ranch development is going to put an end to all of this, because they have literally used just about every square inch of that 30 acres for something that has nothing to do with the natural world. The park's wildlife is going to be a lot more dependent on the park's resources. The Open Space Foundation has worked sporadically over the last 20 years or so to plant native trees and grasses, but there's a lot more that needs to be done and that could be done. That doesn't affect what you're looking at specifically. It's other parts of the park, but it is something that we think about, because part of the attraction of the park is the wildlife that we have. So what we suggest, there are the Walnut Creek Watershed Council suggested 2 or 3 years ago that we make more use of the aquatic resources in particular, but there are others. And we developed a plan for that. Staff liked it. The city council has approved it. There is money. There's momentum. But it concentrates on water. And a lot of our critters don't need water quite that directly, not for their sustenance. They need native plants, because those are the kinds that really nourish the pollinators, the small aquatic
Leslie, if you could
creatures.
wrap it up, please.
Okay. What we would like to see in this design is that it be landscaped largely, it and any other areas that are up for change, be designed using native plants. Not only California native plants, but plants that are native here, plants that our critters are accustomed to eating and will recognize and use, and therefore support our wildlife. Thank you.
Introduce yourself. You got 2 minutes.
Hi there, I'm Audrey G. I live and work here. I'm a business owner. I'm also chair of the Walnut Creek Chamber. I'm here speaking on behalf of myself today. Just a couple of things we wanted to point out. You know, we want to build a facility that supports meets where swimmers and families can stay for a weekend, where we would be able to support the existing restaurants, hotels, the markets, have all that great economic vitality. But currently, the pool designed is too shallow at one one end. I think it's by like 1.5 feet. It's a really small amount that it's too shallow to permit like the starting block diving, which is necessary from competitive meets. And it's also 2 meters too short. Again, small amount of time, small amount to be able to accommodate the bulkhead, which is necessary to make the pool usable to run competitive meets. There's only 2 meets right now because the pool currently is too shallow to run those regional meets. We have an opportunity. We're spending $76 million. Let's get it right this time where we can actually support, you know, competitive meets for our existing aquatics community, right? Masters, youth sports, all of those sorts of things. We're missing out on, in just like a typical event, would be 1,500 swimmers, maybe 3,000 to 4,500 people with parents, right? So the deck space also between the 2 pools is too small for spectator bleachers and audience in the show, so just moving it over just a little bit. And the rec pool just needs to be a little bit larger with 4 more lanes to make up the loss of the water space for the 3rd pool. And the use is so great right now. We can't even run water polo. I'm a water polo parent because everyone else, Masters, Aquabears, Synchro, is all using the pool. We don't even get space at all. So the asks are a 52-meter pool, not 50, with a bulkhead. And a bulkhead is like a floating walkway, which allows them for several uses at the pool at the same time. It allows Masters to run 25-meter events, not yards, that they're currently holding out of the diving well. We need a deep pool to be able to meet the competitive swimming requirements, USA Swimming, Masters, those sorts of things, that allows starting blocks on both ends. And also, I would flip the beach access because right now, the rec pool that you're showing here, it's rectilinear. I would flip that closer to the changing areas because the beach access, it would be great to be able to take advantage of all the landscaped area, and also it's a free form. The last piece would be the classrooms and offices, I think should be flipped, so you could take advantage with all of the great views of the pool, of the pond, and then have all of the changing rooms immediately accessible when you first walk in. I understand that there are some concerns about security, but anytime that you run meets, you always have parents who do gate duty, so that certainly could be accommodated in terms of the security
Audrey, if you could wrap up,
concerns. And then that is it. Thank you very much.
Do we have any more public comments? All right, so we're moving on to commissioner comments. Let's go ahead. Brian, you want to start?
I think this is a good first step. I don't really have any comments. Scheme A or B, both are, you know, functional the same. You know, if I had to pick different reforms, I would go with Scheme A. Again, just hearing the last speaker about the pool, I think from what I limited know, there might be issues then with the heating the water and other things that play into that may determine how much water you use, which may affect costs and everything, so there's probably more to that. But I think she makes sense what she's asking on the surface, but whether that's doable or not, I don't know. I guess in general, I like it. I think they do have the right circulation, the connections into the existing park, you know, and going around the pond, I think is great. Again, my only comment would be at this point, as I mentioned earlier about the drop-off, I was going more holistic to where, you know, maybe the building could be enlarged or pushed forward, or even the pool, where that whole turnaround, you know, just scratch it and start from as if it wasn't there and see what you can do. I think it's just way too big for what it needs to be. I think coming in, turning left and going that direction, and then having them coming in, doing a U-turn and come the other way is just conflict, and I know you're going to work it out with the traffic engineers. But you know, why that couldn't be pushed more toward San Carlos Drive, and you know, that might give you an extra 50 feet, 100 feet to work with for some more opportunities. But overall, I like it.
So I will insist on the same thing. I mean, I'm sorry that I took the question portion for comments So my comments remain the same. I see that there are a lot of functions here that seem to work together. Spaces appear to be proportionate to the uses and they relate to each other. Unfortunately, the building does not express that as a form. The building is, I see a collection of different pieces that don't relate to each other. I would like to see a more harmonious building that actually expresses what successfully is going on programmatically inside. I see that I would make a big effort during the design development to move the building in this direction.
All right, thank you. I think I shared quite a few comments during my question period, so sorry for mixing and matching. You know, at the 50,000 foot level, I think it's a good concept. You know, I'm a frequent customer of the Greenery restaurant at the golf course right across the street. There's nothing that's sort of really attracted me to go over to the existing facilities. You know, I've been living here for about almost 23 years. I'd want to come and hang out here and walk around here. You know, again, I'm not a pool user, but it looks like a very beautiful overall development that would attract me to want to stop by and hang out, maybe spend time in the atrium or, you know, some of those patios. And that in my, you know, resident at large role, that's one of my primary decision points about design. Do I want to go hang out there? And I think this looks great. You know, the building may not end up looking exactly like this, but conceptually I think it's fantastic. And the only other comment I'll add, you know, since we're spending, you know, $70+ million, which means we have scale, and scale to me in the business world means we have purchasing power, let's negotiate and get the best looking materials we can for every aspect of this center, including the roof. And, you know, let's make it look stunning for that kind of money. Thank you.
Okay. First off, I think it's really, you guys are really on a good direction. I think starting with operationally, I mean, I think it's really important that there continues to be dialogue about how the flow of this thing is going to work and how swim and wedding and even soccer events across the street can happen at the same time. And I think really, the others brought up that area in the front, whether the redwoods stay or go. Those, you know, redwoods have a life. I think you really have to make the drop off work here. And at this point, it being curved, and you just need to spread out those uses wider along the frontage if you can. I think about my own kids going to the swim events here, and I just think about them having to go walk all this distance. I think about walking easy ups into it, and I think there needs to be more direct access. I don't propose a big change. I just think maybe the access to the swim needs to be closer. And you need to think about that. I think you need to think about, okay, if there's a swim event and a wedding going on at the same time, I mean, you're going to want to do that. You're going to want to maximize this facility, get the rents that you can, have the community use it. So just plan on that. Just kind of pull along the front, just kind of pull those uses apart a bit. I think if you look at, there's like a secondary access, like a vehicular access that's along, it's San Carlos, is that the avenue? North San Carlos? I mean, that, just having had my kids go to these swim events, they're going to open those doors up, and in those big swim events, they're going to come right through those doors, and they're going to go right across the street. So just be aware of that. Maybe do some kind of a crosswalk to actually spread those uses out, because that's the way. There's a real opportunity here to spread the uses out to allow a lot of people to use it at once. looking at the community feedback that you got, I noticed that the library was most favored. Library really has a mix of materials. I think the library has too many materials on, frankly, but the idea that there's a few materials, I think I love the wood. I think we as architects, we love wood, right? I think my job is thinking about the taxpayer money. I mean, they're never going to, if you looked at that existing community center, it's all wood, it's all shot, right? So think about mixing in other materials, be it stucco or, some of the examples you had concrete. I don't know if you can afford the concrete, but actually really focus on the wood around the entrances and then actually provide more practical materials. It hurts me to say it, but put the bang for the buck in. Make sure you use materials that are strong. I disagree with the roof. I'll tell you why, Charles. The way this building is designed, you're never going to see that roof. I think in the studio, if it was my studio, I think everybody in my studio would like option B because the roof is a cool idea. It's a nice start. But the reality is you don't see it. From a human scale, you're actually below it at the pond. You're actually coming in it from the other side. The way you've designed it, I think it's kind of clever, and that's why you're thinking comp, is you'll never see that roof. So if you can make it, if you can continue to design so you don't see it, I don't have any objection to being an inexpensive material, but why comp, If you're going to do an all-electric building, if you're going to save energy, I mean, it should be a light color, right? If you can pull that off, if they can afford it, that's probably better. Also highlighted the word modern. I mean, I think modern is great. Modern is harder to detail. But I think if you make it a more transitional design than trying to get hung up in a lot of detail, I think it's going to be good. Natural materials, the wood. I love the cross-laminated timber idea if you can afford it. Another big word in those idea clouds is shade. So shade, you have to integrate it into the design, into the overhangs of the building. I think the trellises that you have, they have to work. They have to actually provide shade. They can't be window dressing because it gets hot. And the way they intend to use this facility, which is in the afternoons and the summers where there's going to be a lot of weddings, you need to actually provide shade. I mean, maybe I'm not thinking about which direction is north or south, but just make sure that you're providing shade there, that you're providing shade at the pool, real shade, not window dressing. And think about with the trellises, I mean, I love the idea it's going to look great day one, but a mix of materials, right? So like maybe some of it being steel, things that are easier to maintain, and again, punching the wood so you can use it, and so you get the value of it, but then making sure they have a reasonable idea to maintain this thing. My favorite pet peeve with these early designs is where's all the rooftop equipment, right? I mean, it's all missing. So whatever you do, you're going to have to actually do in a way so the equipment cannot be seen. I'm not talking about roof screens. Do some sightline drawings so you make sure that you can't see it from a human scale. What else? I mean, I support the idea of more pool space. I think I've gone to pool events at the existing swim center, and there are easy ups everywhere. And in those those are very important community events. They're a couple times a year, but they're very important. So study what those actually look like and make sure there's enough space and make sure they have shade and places to lay those things down. Native plants. I heard the comments about native plants. Native plants are great. I think there's certainly some great opportunities here in the bioswales and other places to do that. I mean, with the losses they have in Seven Hills Ranch and so forth, it's a good idea to integrate that as much as you can. We're not supposed to talk about the pools, but my pet peeve with my own pool, Walnut Heights pool, is the fact that it's not deep enough. And a couple of years ago, a kid cracked his head open. There's ambulances. Every year there's ambulances because it's not deep enough. So think about the liability. And the other thing is, there's only so much money here. I appreciate the fact that there have been donations. There may need to be more donations to make those things happen because projects are not cheap. This is a public project. This is taxpayer money. $76 million, it seems like a lot of money. That's $50 million worth of building cost with a pool. You need to find the money to make the pools right because otherwise it's creating a liability for the city. And I think I've said enough.
Okay, I think this item has been completed, and we could move on. I mentioned earlier that staff might have more commission considerations, but I'd like to make that actually in item 6, commissioner staff reports or announcements.
Okay, so let's proceed with item 6.
Just a couple of announcements. One, and I think you've all received this, is that the mayor chair quarterly meeting schedule for 2024 is out. The first one is, I believe, next Friday, the 26th. I think that's next Friday, 7:30 a.m. So that would be the current chair and vice chair. Following would be April. By that time, first meeting in March, we'll do a rotation for chair and vice chair. So the rest of the schedule would be April 26th. All of these are Fridays at 7:30 in the morning. April 26th, July 26th, and October 25th. Secondly, the reappointment interviews for various commissions in the city, for all the commissions in the city. The recruitment began on the 9th, and it closes on January 31st. There's openings, 1 for this commission. Then there will be 2 for the Arts Commission, 2 for Planning Commission, 1 for Pros, 2 for Transportation, 4 for the Board of Appeals, 1 for the City Council's Advisory Council on Aging, and then I believe 1 for the Mosquito and Vector Control. There will be a recognition ceremony for those new commissioners and reappointed commissioners, and that looks like it's going to be March 5th. March 5th, excuse me?
And exiting commissioners as a part of that
I believe so.
ceremony.
And lastly, well, and there's another mention about the mayor chair meetings. So the third item would be, and I think you've all already taken your passes, and thank you for exchanging those out and bringing me the old ones for those of you that did. But those of you that didn't, I'll need to next meeting, just bring in the 2023 pass. Okay? And it came with a memo on how, where, and when you can use those passes. And Chair, that's all I have. That's all staff has.
Excellent. So now we're going to move on to item 7, which is adjournment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we'll do some out.